And now, as they say, for something completely different. Meet Melissa Esquibel and Jessica McBride. For most of you, they will be familiar names, but for those of you who are not familiar with them, let me introduce them properly. So Melissa Esquibel has worked in tech for most of her adult life, as she puts it, since dinosaurs roamed the earth, and she retired earlier on this year. She was one of the top tech trainers in America, and I'm so thrilled we've been able to coax her out of retirement to argue the case against AI. It should be said that she has a background in risk. On the other side, Jessica McBride, who pops up on my timeline regularly, talking about tech and AI in particular. And I've just been blown away by the way that she's using the technology to explain to all of you how you can really get with the program and use AI to be sure that you are underpinning everything that you are doing for your executives. She, of course, is arguing the case for AI. This is a spectacular debate. Both women are real masters of their craft. They both are absolutely passionate about tech, and I couldn't think of a better pairing to really stimulate this debate and get us thinking, and it certainly did for me. So, will you please join me in welcoming the phenomenal Melissa Esquibel and Jessica McBride. Hello, both of you, and how wonderful to see you. Thank you so much for joining.
Thanks for having us, Lucy.
Yes, thank you so much.
Excellent. I'm really excited for this one because I know that both of you will be really well known to our audiences. And I think you are the two sides of the coin here on the argument, and both of you are so knowledgeable. I think it's going to be a really amazing discussion. So I'm going to start with you, Jessica, first of all, and I want to talk to you about efficiency and automation. Can you talk to us a little bit about how AI can enhance administrative tasks by making sure that processes are put into some kind of routine and allowing the professionals to concentrate on their day job?
So what I've found in my time with executive assistant and administrative professional communities is that there is a real lacking of guides. We have some books, we have some ideas, but a real templated guide has been very difficult, and something I regularly see people asking for is, I need a template for this, I need guidance on that. And it's hard to locate that information on the internet because the internet is really vast, it's huge, everything is just kind of disparate and out there. And everything is so personalized to each organization. It's hard for one EA to look to another EA and be like, yeah, this is my binder, because everything has to be redacted, everything is changed, and every internal policy is going to be different. So what I found with using AI like ChatGPT, which is a large language model, is that it's taken the grand sum of the internet text and it has created what it has deemed to be the best version. And I think this works really well when you are struggling because you need to write a travel and entertainment policy and you've never done this before, is you can go to ChatGPT and ask it for the structure of what would be included in this travel and entertainment policy. And you're saving yourself hours of going out and finding a bunch of different travel and entertainment policies all over the web, piecing them together, making like a Franken document and going forward. You're just cutting out that middle step of the hours of research. And I find that a lot of admins are really weighed down by tasks like that take a lot more time than they probably need to. And when you open up that time, there's a lot of opportunity to really grow within the organization and take on more projects that are going to give you the visibility that you desire, instead of just kind of doing these tasks that really, like I said, we don't need to reinvent the wheel. These are out there. We just have to find them. And that's the difficult part is, and something that I speak to with the assistants is that you are not getting paid for the act of going and doing the research. You're getting paid for your knowledge of assessing that research and knowledge and knowing this is what fits our organization. So if you can go and you just get the templated guide and you can just copy and paste it into your organization's Google Drive, Microsoft SharePoint, you can then, like I said, take it and say, okay, this is how it would look in my organization, and really personalize it. And you can create this templated guide where you have all this information readily available. So if you find yourself consistently going back and doing the same tasks more than like 3 times, you can consider, how do I automate this? So for like emails, it could be like an automated email where you create a template and it just automatically responds. But then you could take it further with products like Zapier or Power Analytics. Power BI. I just moved to Microsoft, so I'm not super expert on it. But there's automations that you can create, so it's really easy where it's like this file automatically uploads to the cloud so that I'm not forgetting to upload it to the cloud every week when I do this meeting. And it creates a smaller margin of error when you are doing repetitive tasks. And so I really think that is where the advancing comes in. This is where we can really take it and run with it with our industry and find like, how do we shift our industry to be even more powerful within an organization by freeing up that time?
Yeah, I think it's a really, really powerful tool. But I know, Melissa, you have concerns about that cut and paste stuff, don't you?
I do. Because the sum total of knowledge available to ChatGPT is the sum total of knowledge that exists in this moment. In the next moment, a new regulation is written, which changes how a policy might look. And so my message is not don't use it. My message is use it with care. So, for example, if you're using it to create policies, then in the moment the policy is personalized. By the time you've taken the text and you've customized it for your industry and customized it for your organization and customized it for any other particular specifics for that use, in the next moment, right before publication, is to look at the regulations governing such policies and to make sure that you are within the regulations. Now, one might argue that that's always been a risk, that ChatGPT is not new if you're talking about using it to get text and copy and paste it into a policy or create a policy with it. That is correct. And to a degree, you might say ChatGPT is better because it will contain what is most current. Right. It is the responsibility, it is the effort to validating and verifying that we're willing to put in that makes these tools either good or bad. And let me give you an analogy. An automobile is a wonderful tool for getting from point A to point B. It's also a weapon.
Yes,
So
yes, I hear absolutely what you're saying.
My response around that, and that is just to Jessica's example of using it for policy. And one must understand. So it's probably a proper full disclosure from me. I am officially at the get off my lawn stage of life. I'm old. I'm cranky. If I don't need it, I won't use it. And so I may be the first person of my ilk to say, I hear you on all this great stuff, and I do use AI in certain aspects of my work. Will never have, don't have, never intend to download ChatGPT. Because when I write something for those people who pay me for writing, I'm 100% sure that what I've written is verified, validated, and the truth. I don't want to guess, and I don't want to be caught by the human nature of, gosh, we're really close to deadline. I'm sure it's fine. I gotta go. Send. And that's the stuff that worries me about using AI to generate things that people will make decisions about.
Do you think that the executive assistants and admins out there right now that are being given tasks like write a travel and entertainment policy, write a standard operating procedure, what do you think that they would do otherwise? They would just make it manually. They would go, okay, I'm going to guess at what I think, or I'm going to go ask a Facebook group. I'm in a lot of Facebook groups and I see a lot of questions in there. They're going to go and source that information regardless because everybody wants help. Everybody, and so many organizations only have one executive assistant and they're really out there just winging it on their own. So they were going to go and find this information on the internet and create this standardized form as it is. We addressing the like it's not current. When we think about standardized forms, they don't really change, right? Like it's like a contract where you want standardized language. So it's going to be just like I said, a template, and you're just going to, this is what I need to include to tick all my boxes. And I think that's the big difference, is that I'm not asking ChatGPT to write my content for me. Even as a creator, when I use ChatGPT as a thought partner, I'm asking ChatGPT, here are things that I want to talk about, create ideas to further that. And then I take that as a template and I speak to it in my presentations. And as a neurodivergent person, the difference of having something that breaks my task initiation has been the difference of me building a business and being miserable in a job. Because for the longest time, I couldn't do a project because I would end up paralyzed in fear of not doing it perfectly. I didn't have anybody to look to. I was the only EA in my organization, and nobody had ever done this role before. And it was a startup, so everything was the first time that we've ever done anything. And ChatGPT is that coworker that I can ask all my annoying questions to and not have to like go to my principal and be like, here's my word vomit of the like all the questions that I have and go that need to go into this policy, because executives are busy. They don't want to manage us. They are very invested in running a company. And so when I have 15 questions ready to go because they've asked me to create a policy, that's not the time. That's not the time, and that's not the space. So I have to stop myself, and then I go and I create a plan ahead of time, or, in the background. And then I bring like a first case or a first draft forward. And I say like, here's what I've thought about, and here's like the things that I've worked on. And then we'll go from there. And like I said, ChatGPT for me, it's a thought partner of like, we have questions, and entering them into Google isn't the same as it used to be. Google used to be the end all be all, but everybody has been stuffing blog posts with keywords since, ads became a thing. So now it's really hard to get good data. It's hard to find really like vetted, solid information. And using ChatGPT, it's like I can look and I go, oh, that doesn't actually fit my organization. Let me change that. And going back to the part about like things change is when you're using AI, any kind, ChatGPT, you always keep the human in the loop. So we're still reassessing these policies, and we're still looking at them to say like, is this actually accurate? And it would do that regularly, but you actually have the policies versus before you would just kind of be like out hoping that like what you wrote down made sense. And like, they don't care. Small businesses don't care about the legalities of what they're asking executive assistants to do. Like I've seen them be asked to write contracts all the time without like lawyers' help. We're going to have to do the task regardless. We may as well like have a tool that like can give us a standard like idea of what would go into that. And I think that is more important for moving our organization forward or our industry forward than, the pat on the back that we get because like we worked really, really hard on something for 6 hours that like with technology can take us 1 hour now. So like, I don't think that there is like a benefit to my suffering anymore. Like technology changed for the world when the internet came about, and now it's just very much the next divergence of this is how we're shifting and evolving. And I think it's just a tool that people need to learn to use responsibly, just like they learn to use the internet responsibly.
Okay, I heard a breath. So in the beginning of that, you had a question, and the question was, what would you have them use instead? And the answer is, I wouldn't. My concern is not that they would use this to generate work product. My concern is that over time, like many other things, we have abdicated the responsibility for verification. And the risks and threats associated with abdicating have been monumental, have been, in some cases, life-threatening, in other cases, money-losing, have been privacy-violating, all because we got very comfortable with the new tech and abdicated. Now, the one thing I love about talking to this particular group is part of what makes you awesome at what you do is your attention to detail and caring about whether something is right or not right. And so generating a policy and double checking, and forms change all the time. I know recently, and I forget where it was here in Europe, a tax form changed with reference to gender. And therefore, the information collected by a corporation or a company had to change with respect to questions it was asking about gender. That's a real life consequence of perhaps being on the wrong side of law. And again, it can happen no matter what. But however easy something is, we tend as human beings, and did a whole bunch of research, as human beings, we tend to get a little careless when something is easy. We don't worry about it so much anymore because it was easy to generate. So Jessica, I can clearly hear in your work ethic and your methodology and your way of thinking that this is something you're not subject to. But I worry about the new admin coming into this space, having always used AI, having always used ChatGPT, not knowing any other way to do these things than that, and having perhaps gotten a bit comfortable with not validating, verifying, and vetting the information that they're receiving. In fact, spoke to last week an HR person. I said, how do you know when you've asked a candidate for a writing sample, how do you know that that's their communication style? How do you know it's them and not ChatGPT or something else? Because you can use a plagiarism checker for sure, and you can see whether something's plagiarized, but you're not necessarily going to get plagiarized information from ChatGPT, but something well written. But if you need that person to write something off the cuff about new subject matter, are they going to be able to produce what they just handed you as a writing sample? And while that is not a binary question answer, well, then don't use it. I've been in tech too long. I've been in tech, as Lucy will tell you, since there were dinosaurs roam the earth. That not using tech is not the answer. It's being very, very guarded about how we use tech and how to make sure we've inserted the right amount of responsibility and accountability into using these kinds of tools.
Yeah. And yet I do think that AI can probably be relied upon to minimize human errors in tasks like data entry and document formatting and calculations and improving accuracy of administrative work. I think it's when we get into arenas like legal documents and policies and that sort of thing that we run into trouble. But I'd love to hear about, because I know you've been showing on social media quite a lot, Jessica, how you can use it to do that type of thing. And I'd be really interested to hear from you some of the things that you feel it benefits that way.
For the data analysis, is this what we're, sorry?
Well, yes, for data entry or for document formatting or any of those more manual tasks.
Yeah, so it's not just ChatGPT, right? Like I use ChatGPT in conjunction with a lot of different AI programs. And one of the things that I really like is the programs that are making like slide decks for you. Because is there really any redeeming factor about creating a slide deck? Like, is that really like empowering me to move my career ahead? No, like it's busy work and it's work that needs to get done, but it's time consuming. So I can create my outline and I can put it into the presentation, and it's going to create like a visually pretty outline of a slide deck that I can go in, and then I can add my facts and all of my information into. But that's time that I would have spent going, okay, what image do I need to put here? And what about this text box? And like, is this perfect? Is like everybody going to love this? I don't have time for that anymore. Like I'm busy. And if I can streamline a slide deck creation, like that's absolutely something that like I'm going to pass off. And data analysis, obviously you're going to want to make sure that you're using like a private instance of ChatGPT in terms of like they just released their enterprise one. You don't want to, we've talked about, you don't want to put private company data into the public version of ChatGPT, but there are versions now that are private and built specifically for your organization. And it can look at all of your company data. So it can look at all of your like onboarding documents, your employee handbook, and you can create like a database of this information. So instead of somebody messaging me 5 times a day to ask me something that is definitely in my onboarding guide, they can ask the chatbot and the chatbot will provide that answer to them. And that's going to free up some time. And you can also, like I said, data analysis of like, I need to look at all of these documents and figure out what exactly they mean. Yes, I know I can take the time to read them myself and like I can go over them. But there's also really cool tools like I was doing yesterday where I uploaded the World Administrators Alliance job matrix. And I was showing how you can take your job description and put it into ChatGPT after you've uploaded this PDF. And you can ask ChatGPT, where do I align in the job matrix? You know, tell me where I should go in my career in terms of like, how should I try and build on what I'm doing currently? What should I, if this is what I'm good at, like, how would I lean into that further? And you can interact with these PDFs or these documentations where it's like I said, I have ADHD. Like, it's really difficult for me to read through like a multi-page PDF, but I'm still getting the information that I need. And so I think that there's obviously like a time and place. You don't want to like go uploading your private company data into ChatGPT and being like, let me analyze this data in here, because that's not how you want to run things. But when you do have the data privacy recommendations in place and like you are good to go, like you don't want to like lose your job over this, is we can analyze data in a way that you probably would have needed a business analyst or data analysis degree in the past to really like be able to consume this data. And by the way, just because we don't have this skill doesn't mean that we've never been asked to do this. Like, I've been asked to read financial data before, even though I don't have a background in it. So the asks are always going to come, and we have to figure out how to navigate it so that we can continue to like be a strategic business partner, because business only changes. It only gets more complicated. There only becomes, more things to worry about. And so using ChatGPT or like Gamma app is the one that I use to make presentations a lot. As well as like, I know Microsoft is implementing their new AI package soon where it's like $30 a month per person, and they're going to have the same kind of smart slide creation. So these are all going to be tools that are implemented regularly, like into our workforce over the next few years.
It's so interesting, and I'm loving some of those tools. And I saw what you did yesterday with the Global Skills Matrix, and it was really, really amazing. Melissa, I know that you're from a risk background. That's where you come from, and also from a data background. So I'm interested in your thoughts on that. I mean, isn't it going to be fine as long as we're uploading it to something that is private?
I think that's a statement I can make if the question comes to me today, and in the next 5 minutes, I don't know. So let me say this about that. I think that some of the uses that Jessica's describing are brilliant and perfect uses of AI, of those tools. That skills matrix and overlaying your experience with the skills matrix, absolutely brilliant. As far as risk goes, like any other production of financial statements, which does fall into the hands of senior administrative professionals everywhere, you're going to make sure the numbers are right. You're going to make sure your data is right. You're going to make sure you footnoted things properly. You're going to make sure you've gotten everybody's input that needs to have input so you don't have problems on the back end. Absolutely. That's all going to happen. I promise you, there are people listening to this broadcast who just realized there is a private versus public version of ChatGPT. They're like, oh, wait, what? And so my question for the broader audience is, do you know the safety of the apps that you're using? A private version of ChatGPT, absolutely. However, like every other app, I would be monitoring. Again, as you said, Lucy, I come from risk background. I come from data security and information privacy and compliance. That's my world. That you would be running or at least visiting sites that gave you new information on current threats and risks in the tools that you use. So if there is, since many programmers are generating code, by the way, with ChatGPT, they're generating code, and it was discovered that some of the code being generated, because the programmers using it were not necessarily skilled, they were only skilled at ChatGPT, but not great at the coding part, were putting in backdoor code into the programs they were creating. and that backdoor code made it into an app, and that app then became a risky app to use. So these things are discovered also with lightning speed to stay aware. So yes, you are saving scads of time by using these tools. Add back a little bit for regular, normal monitoring of the safety and security of the applications you're using and any new threats that are popping up. Just like you're running virus software today, hopefully, and malware and ransomware protection on your computer, perhaps there will be also scan, are you using apps like ChatGPT or the like, and are there new threats in these? Until such a tool becomes available, it's kind of up to you to make sure that you're staying on top of the current threats. I think by being on the con side of this debate, I think it's possibly understood by some that you should never use any of these tools, and that would never be my position, being in technology since, 1978. I think technology is grand and great. It's just that every new technology has had a nefarious use. Every nefarious use has had dire consequences in our history. This as well could have dire consequences in our history, to our history, and we just need to understand that that is the truth, and never lose the vigilance that obviously Jessica is giving us. The vigilance and the care that Jessica is taking with her use needs to be broad, and it needs to be broad, especially in this profession, because often this profession is the only thing keeping your executive out of the papers, and not in a good way.
Definitely. I love the things that you were saying, Jessica, about how it's going to enhance your role and really free you up to go and do more of the things that are needed at a strategic level, because we've been saying forever, if you can do things twice in the same way, it can be automated, and therefore the stats that we're seeing coming out of the States, particularly at those lower levels for assistants, are showing that those assistants are going, mainly because those task-based reactive things are being automated. But at the higher level, at the strategic level, that's one of the top 10 roles according to Glassdoor of the future. So I can really see the benefits there to that. I wonder whether you could share with us some of the other ways in which they are able to use AI in order to free up their time. Particularly, I'm thinking about things like resource optimization and looking at how you could maybe design office space better, or some of the more surreal things that they get involved in.
I think this is one of the times where you don't take it as gospel, where it's like, if I needed to do a return to office plan, I'm obviously going to crowdsource as much information as I can from various different sources. Obviously wouldn't be the first person doing this around the time. And I would ask ChatGPT, like, I'm doing an office plan. This is my idea. And I would put in the, kind of the information that I have, and I would ask it to create me a project plan. Because ultimately I'm going to go and try and struggle through trying to create a project plan in my, on my notebook, or, in Asana or whatever tool that we're using within our organization. But if there's things I'm going to miss, and this is what I come back to with policies and procedures, is when you create a policy and procedure, you iterate on it multiple times, because you create this policy and then inevitably Steve from accounting goes and he's like, hey, by the way, sales accidentally spent too much at this bar. And you need to be like, oh, we should have included that you can't go to the bars with the company credit card. So you're always going to be changing a plan. So I never think oh, I'm going to get this plan from ChatGPT and this is the gold standard, I'm never going to have to do anything. But it definitely captures things that I wouldn't think about otherwise. And it kind of gets me a few steps ahead of okay, I need to make sure that I'm thinking about how we're going to move all the chairs, and are there enough outlets. There's all these things that we want to make sure that we're capturing. And you can always use ChatGPT, like I said, as a thought partner, to be like, hey, here's my plan. What am I missing? What have I not thought about? And it's going to capture some of the gaps that you wouldn't have necessarily thought about on your first instance. There's some talk about schedules, because when ChatGPT first came out, everybody was going and asking ChatGPT, how can an executive assistant use ChatGPT? And it would spit out the same 5 answers of just this copy paste of this is how it can help. It would say scheduling. And there was a lot of confusion with people because ChatGPT itself doesn't schedule, but it is a technology on top of being a chatbot. So other companies have built technologies on top of ChatGPT to create like smart scheduling programs. And that is like one way that you could speed up your scheduling process is if you were able to get something like that implemented. But that's probably not the solution that most of us are going to go for because companies probably aren't going to pay for that. And also, like, that's a big part of our job. We probably don't want to give that part up yet. But you can say, like, I've gotten emails before from somebody I support that is just like a wall of text, and I cannot parse out to save my life what they exactly want, what the ask is. Like, what is the ask here exactly? I can ask ChatGPT, like, can you find the action items? And it's going to pull out a list of like, okay, these are the tasks from that message that you need to work on. And then I have a nice little to-do list that I can easily make sure that like I'm capturing everything. It is a natural language processor. It's been trained on human language in a way that like we cannot even possibly wrap our brains around. Like we'll never like experience that amount of language. So it's able to give you this like formatted, easy, like conversational answer that you might not have been able to get otherwise. And it saves the back and forth of like, can you explain to me exactly what you meant in that email? Because I didn't catch it. So yeah, it's thinking about what kind of like text communication that you do, like what kind of projects you need to do. Try to think of some more use cases. It's always one of those things where like when I'm for it, like I need to talk about it and like suddenly I'm like drawing a blank. But my biggest thing, like I said, is talking to ChatGPT and asking all the questions that I would like to ask an expert if given the opportunity. But everybody has finite time and resources, so like we're not going to do that. So just really like thinking through things, and I think that to me, like ChatGPT has been, like I said, it's been a boon for creativity. It's been amazing for being able to understand things better, because I remember when I was like working in an admin job like a few years ago, and nobody wanted to answer my questions. Like I needed to know the why behind why are we doing this? Like what is the purpose of it? And nobody had time for that. So for me to learn something, I need to be able to like ask all of these questions. And that's like I said, the biggest way that like I use it is like, tell me how I can be better at this and tell me what I've missed and tell me, you know, if these are things that I need to talk about, what are some combined ways to talk about these things? And it's just like, it's just like having this partner that like I've never gotten to have before. So it is really, like I said, think about text communications, processes, standardized operating procedures. Don't just stop at like I'm having it write an awkward email for me, because like it is like there's so many cooler ways to like be using it.
For sure. I use it for stupid things this week. Like I wrote a whole email and then I said, can you give me for MailChimp the subject line and the preview, and it's brilliant at doing that and just going, that's what's at the heart of it and this is what's going to work, you know. And or I'm very, very good at writing great long emails that are very verbose, but to go, can you please take this down to 200 words for me or to 100 words for me, it goes boom. And also, you know, I've done this piece of stuff on LinkedIn, can you please turn this into a thread on Twitter, or can you please take this down to the right number of words for Instagram, that kind of thing. It's brilliant for that. But I know, Melissa, I would be really interested to hear what you think about the threat that it's causing to jobs, because I know that we've already discussed the fact that obviously it's freeing the assistants up to do more of the work that they're capable of doing, but not every business understands the work that they're more capable of doing. And I think my concern is that in some ways it might disrupt the traditional career path, because you're not going to have that entry level because that will have been taken over. So can you talk a little bit to that for me?
Well, 100% it's going to disrupt it. As word processing disrupted the role of secretary, as personal computing disrupted the role of desktop publishing, as desktop publishing disrupted the role of graphics designer. So absolutely it's disrupting. And disrupting, I think, hopefully we've learned to hear the word disrupt is not always a negative. Okay. So according to the statistics, and I did a little research, I am finding this to be largely true. Just under half of what the world considers office and administrative positions will be replaced by some form of AI. Now, that's a very broad definition and could mean nearly anything. For example, proofreading. You have people that were employed as proofreaders. Perhaps those will be some of the first ones to go away because AI is really good at proofreading. Heck, we've got proofreading built into the apps we're using for document processing right now. So there are jobs that are already disappearing. However, while there are jobs disappearing, there are jobs being created by this. And I think, especially in the administrative positions, if you want to know how valuable it is to have a human doing it in this moment, take the human out of it for a week and see how it goes. It's not going to go very well because your executive might appreciate how quickly you were able to put together the optimal itinerary for 4 cities between this date and this date, saving the most money on airfare, getting hotels of a certain quality with these amenities, and getting that all taken care of and generating it beautifully, only to find out that part of that included a trip to Tampa during a hurricane. And now that executive is not interested in how fast you can reroute them or how fast you can take their itinerary and fix it. They're like, help me figure this out. I mean, let's don't talk about the movie for a second, but you know, can I get the National Guard in here to airlift me out? You're right. So to a degree, that human touch is always going to be required in the role of assistant, the higher up in the organization you get. It's at the mid-level, I think both mid-level managers and their administrative professionals who may be falling out of this 46%, who may either A, need to do their jobs better, need to expand the jobs they're doing. Jessica mentions data analysis, and you as well, Lucy, mentioned data analysis. I mean, that was a job all by itself, off in a corner, either in IT or in finance, not more than 5 years ago. Now, a senior administrative professional is expected to know how to generate things like a dashboard, a financial dashboard. They're just simply expected to know, to look at a financial statement, understand the key data points for an organization, and generate a dashboard on those. So the job changed. So I would say for anybody who feels like, if they feel revealed by that middle level, like, oh my gosh, I might be in trouble, training's available. Start getting trained. And also, and I can't stress this enough, if you can go to an organization and say, I was part of a team that helped a new acquisition recover from a ransomware attack, or I was part of a team that was able to uncover inconsistencies in vendor contracts with the current law. If there's anything about your job that says, I have eyes on this thing, I have awareness on this thing, you now become more valuable. Jessica and I were talking about our common lineage back to Texas. And I was talking to somebody down there last week whose company just came out the other side of a ransomware attack. And we're talking about 4 months of work to get through this. And I told her, please put the fact that you were involved in the recovery for this on your resume, because I promise you if there is a company anywhere that's not worried about it, they're not paying attention. That attention to detail that you had to have for recovery is the same level of attention to detail you need to use these tools responsibly, these AI tools responsibly. And in many cases, the administrative professional role will be the one that is the stopgap measure to a company making a huge mistake with regard to using the tool. So yes, 46%, that's the common wisdom. All the sources say somewhere between 45 and 50%. Got it. It doesn't have to mean you.
Definitely. And Melissa, you mentioned training administrative professionals, how to use it. Jessica, what training is there out there? Have you, other than yours, of course, which is fabulous, but is it needing training on AI? Is there training needed, do you think, to get assistants really up to speed? Because I think, specifically those that aren't particularly technologically inclined are tending to shy away from it.
Yeah. No, I do. I think that there needs to be training on it, just because when we introduced the internet, we, like I said, we made like agreements of like, this is how you'll use the internet. This is how you won't use the internet. So I think it needs to be trained. It needs to be talked about. It needs to be out in the open in terms of like, let's make a policy for the organization of this is how we will use it and how we won't use it, and get everybody on the same page so there's not that confusion. I think for the problem with using ChatGPT is like, especially when it first was released, is that it was just like this blank screen. It's just this blank blinking screen, and nobody really knew like yet how to use it. And so I think that's why I had the most success with like just testing different executive assistant scenarios and like understanding like, okay, this is how it works. So I think that the best way to learn it is actually using it, but make sure that, like I said, you're using it responsibly. There aren't a lot of courses that I found out there. I know that Robin Greaves just released like an automation course. But like I haven't seen as much like just like on ChatGPT. And I think it's just a matter of responsibly using it, of like, how do I use this without like getting in trouble? Because nobody wants to lose their job over using ChatGPT. So to really start looking at the resources of like how you can use it, and like that won't be a problem for the organization that don't include data. I am seeing more and more organizations that are getting on board with letting their admins use it. I was working with a company recently that like they're actually getting like all their executive assistants access to ChatGPT 4 because it has been such like a really cool tool for everyone to use. I did actually want to circle back to the about like job loss, because I think people put a lot of onus on AI for job loss when it's greedy companies. There are organizations that are at the helm that have decided to cut human jobs in place of using AI, instead of having an AI augmented workforce where they're encouraging their employees to do a job even better by using the AI. And there is no replacement for the human judgment. I've spoken to this before, is that my value as an executive assistant or an admin was not that like I can call a restaurant and make a reservation for you, which like, let's be real, I'm not picking up the phone anyway, I'm going to email. But the benefit of me is that like I know that the person you're eating with is vegan and they need a couple of different vegan options at their restaurant. I know that they don't like a loud restaurant. I know that they need a restaurant with parking. These are all the little things that I have going up in my brain that I've collected over the years that I'm able to go, okay, and now I can make this restaurant reservation for you because I know all of the stuff that you need. And that's never going to go away, because the people that we support don't typically know themselves and their own preferences that well. Like that's my skill as like the emotional quotient of like understanding the humans and like the way that they act, is I have a better understanding of their needs. And like I said, that's not going to go away. That's only going to come made more powerful by the use of AI, because now I can ask, my open table plugin in ChatGPT. I can tell it, I need a restaurant within walking distance of this address. I want it to have at least 4.5 stars, ideally not a steakhouse because of the vegans. Like, and it's going to give me ideas of restaurants that like have availability right there, instead of me having to go to open table and go through every single restaurant like individually and assess. So companies need to be held accountable. Like, they could reskill their workers. They could give them other things to do within an organization. Companies have done it. And right now, I think that a lot of organizations are using AI as a scapegoat to just be like, yeah, we're cutting jobs because of AI. And it's really just trying to make shareholders happy that like they're finding more, cost savings mechanisms. So AI, we talked about this earlier. Technology can be used for evil. There's plenty of reasons why AI needs to be regulated. I actually am for AI being nationalized. I think that it should be run by the government. It's a very powerful and capable tool. And there are way worse ways to be using it than what we're doing as an executive assistant and being like, help me like sort out this project. Like, there are people that are doing nefarious things with it, but you're going to see that in any technology. It's not, ransomware it's not new as of yesterday since ChatGPT came out. Like, that's something that's been going on. So there are bad actors everywhere. And then going back to like your analogy about the car is like, yeah, like and we had to learn to drive responsibly. Like ultimately, like we are given tools, and a hammer could hurt somebody if used inappropriately. So we have to make sure that like when we are giving people tools, we are giving them how to use it, because it's new. It's a new tool. The first person handed a hammer probably didn't know what to do with it. So like you need to make sure that you're building that education and they're getting more familiar with the options. But that's not, it's so new. It's only been out, it's August. It's been out like 8 months to the public. So we're still in the very, very early stages, and it's just going to be kind of like a learning curve for everyone, like as we gear up together.
I couldn't agree more. And I have to say, when I went looking, just as an example, for threads, to find somebody to train threads for me, there was somebody saying, I'm a trainer on threads. I've got 36 hours of experience. I was like, this is hilarious. And it's a bit like this as well, I think, and Melissa and I are both old enough to remember the internet coming into play. And right in the beginning, I had AOL and that blue line that went up to allow you, when it was connected to my phone. And, it took a while for everybody to work out how that was going to work and put the right safety features into place to make sure. And even then, we know what happened with the internet, and that there's the dark side to that as well. And I suspect that ChatGPT and AI will be exactly the same way. I loved your expansion on that, Jessica. I think that was really valuable, because assistants, their AI is one of their EI is one of their huge strengths, their emotional intelligence. We've proven that they have vastly more intellectual, emotional intellect than almost anybody else in the office. And I think the human skills are what the World Economic Forum is telling us that they are going to need for the future of work. So it's really worth holding on to that and understanding that there is a tool. I'm going to finish up by giving both of you an option just to kind of tie it all together and say what you feel. Firstly, Melissa, what else worries you about AI in the workplace? And then I'm going to let Jessica round the whole thing off for us. So, Melissa, talk to me just about whether there's anything else that's worrying you, and summarize, please.
Scaring people is my job. AI boyfriend, AI girlfriend, I think are two apps that you can get right now, and they have a very human interaction with somebody who is feeling like they're lonely and need somebody. So to the point about the human touch and the human interaction and the human piece of this job, absolutely, it's the most important. It's why you will not be 100% replaced. Be careful about that comparison. Be careful about interacting with voices and pictures that you do not know 100% are actual people. That's out there. Stay vigilant. If my message, my summary, stay vigilant, stay careful, be responsible, and don't be the problem. Be the person that stops the problem from happening.
Fabulous. Thank you very much. And Jessica, if you want to round us out, that would be fabulous. Thank you.
I just believe, like I said, I really think that the power is in knowledge, of understanding, like I said, getting ahead of things and not being caught behind of like, oh, somebody used it and they shouldn't have used it that way. So getting ahead of things and saying like, these are the things that we need to know and how to use it is what's going to be the difference between you like implementing it responsibly and, not. And it's a really powerful tool when you are able to harness that power and use it to like scale your career. But, because don't get caught in the weeds. Don't go entering in your boss's social security number. Stay informed. There's some books that I would recommend. There's Artificial Intelligence, and it's the Harvard Business Review, and it's basically just like a book, and it's filled with like a bunch of their articles about AI. That's really incredible. I would follow the AI Exchange. Creator Rachel Woods. She actually has a data science background, so she teaches a lot about like how to automate and like do prompts. And a lot of my base knowledge of ChatGPT is through her. And yeah, stay informed, follow The Verge, follow TechCrunch, just constantly be reading, listening to podcasts, because it is so rapidly changing. It's really easy to feel like you've gotten really behind if you don't like continuously like stay curious. So stay curious.
Fabulous. This has just been so wonderful, and I've learned a huge amount from this discussion, and it's really been thought-provoking. So thank you both very much indeed for your time. Wonderful.
Thanks so much for having me.
Take care, everybody.